make the screen appear with Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Gopi Chandra Baba Hirivaradhari Gopi Chandra Baba Hirivaradhari Yashodanandana Prajajanarandana Yashodanandana Prajajanarandana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Gopi Chandra Bhagava Hirivaradhari Yashodanandana Prajajanarandana Yamunatira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're reading today from the Srimad-bhagavatam, 9th canto, chapter 20, verse 22. It's not big. So we'll chant the verse. Oh. So chant the verse. Reto da putro nayati Naradeva Yamachayat Panchasya Datta Garbhasya Satyam Aha Shakuntala Reto da putra nayati Naradeva Yamakshayat Panchasya Datta Garbhasya Satyam Aha Shakuntala Reto da putra nayati Naradeva Yamakshayat Panchasya Datta Garbhasya Satyam Aha Shakuntala Oda Putunayati Naradeva Yamakshayat Panchasya Datta Garbhasya Satyam Aha Shakuntala Oda Putunayati Naradeva Yamakshayat Panchasya Datta Garbhasya Satyam Aha Shakuntala Reto da Putunayati Naradeva Yamakshayat Panchasya Datta Garbhasya Satyam Aha Shakuntala Reto da Putunayati Naradeva Yamakshayat Panchasya Datta Garbhasya Satyam Aha Shakuntala Word for word. Retada, a person who discharges semen. Putraha, the sun, Nayati, saves, Naradev, O King Maharaj Dushmanta, Yamachayat, from the punishment by Yamaraj or from the custody of Yamaraj. From your good self, Cha, and Asha, of this child, Adata, the creator, Garbhasha, of the embryo, Satyam, truthfully, Aha, said, Shakuntala, your wife Shakuntala. Translation. O King, remember this is the omen from the sky that when bring up the date. Because the king had met and had married this Shakuntala, and he was out away from the kingdom, and so now he's back at the kingdom, and she's wanting to come, and there's some and she has a child now, so there was some doubt. Some people had doubt. Was this actually his wife? Was this actually his son? So a sound, a voice from the sky, maybe a demigod, I don't know, from the sky, or maybe a demigod or someone, I don't know, spoke and to confirm that yes, actually she is his wife and this is his son. So it looks like this is still it says in the purport too. It's still part of the omen. O King Dushmanta, he who discharges semen is the actual father, and the son saves him from the custody of Yamaraj. You are the actual procreator of this child. Indeed, Shakuntala is speaking the truth. Repeat after me. O King Dushmanta, he who discharges semen is the actual father, and his son saves him from the custody of Yamaraj. You are the actual procreator of this child. Indeed, Shakuntala is speaking the truth. Purport. So of course, his wife was already saying, yes, this is my son and this is my husband. But nobody in the kingdom knew that at that point. So she was actually speaking the truth, and the omen from the sky confirmed that she was speaking the truth. So Srila Prabhupada's purport, upon hearing the omen, Maharaj Dushmanta accepted his wife and child. According to Vedic Smriti, Hun Namo Narakad Yasmat Piktarang Trayate Sutaha Tasmat Putra Iti Prokta Swayam Eva Swayam Bhuva. Because a son delivers his father from punishment in the hell called Put, the son is called Putra. According to this principle, when there is a disagreement between the father and mother, it is the father, not the mother, who is delivered by the son. But if the wife is faithful and firmly adherent to her husband, when the father is delivered, the mother is also delivered. Consequently, there is no such thing as divorce in the Vedic literature. A wife is always trained to be chaste and faithful to her husband, for this helps her achieve deliverance from the abominable material condition. This verse clearly says, Putro Nayati Naradeva Yama Shayat. His son saves the father from the custody of Yamaraj. It never says, Putro Nayati Mataram, the son saves his mother. End quote. The seed-giving father is delivered, not the storekeeper mother. Consequently, husband and wife should not separate under any condition, for if they have a child whom they raise to be a Vaishnava, he can save both the father and the mother from the custody of Yamaraj and punishment in hellish life. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gnana Shalakaya Chakshuru Militam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So of course Vedic culture is for everyone. So most in Vedic culture, and in any culture, including Vedic culture, most people were not Vaishnavas at any one particular point. That's like the perfection. Become Vaishnava. So most people were not. Most people were, in the literal, the actual sense of the word, karmis. Sometimes we talk about people around outside the rest of the world. We say refer to karmis, but actually, for the most part, the people in the world are not karmis; they're vikarmis. Vikarmi means. Karma actually means that you're following the Vedic system, but for the purpose of getting some material gain. But you're following that you're doing that by the Vedic laws. So and Vikarmi means those who have rejected all that and are just doing things basically against the scriptural injunctions. In any case, in Vedic culture, most people were karmis in the positive sense, but they were not necessarily devotees. So it's explained here that it's also part of the Vedic system that if the father, specifically it's mentioning the father, was sinful. He was sinful, and maybe he was going to take birth of some very hellish condition. Then his son could perform some certain rituals, and could save the father from the hell name called Put. So that saves the father. So the son is able to save the father. There's a place. Where is that place in India? Haridwar, I think. Anyway, there's a special place in India where people go for that specific purpose. They go there. The father was not a good person, was not a devotee at least, and the son, a dutiful son, would go there and perform a certain sacrifice like that, and would help his father to become free from any hellish condition or even a ghostly condition in some cases that he may have fallen into because of his own sinful activities. So, and I never even thought about it until I read this purport, but they actually, that ceremony is actually done, or that sacrifice is actually done. And specifically, they always mention the father; they don't mention the mother. But of course, in the Vedic culture, we know that the father and the mother, or the husband and wife, there was actually no divorce. They didn't divorce, and because they all knew by the nature of that culture that the son could do if they were sinful, then the father, the son could do something. You had a son, and your son was a good son. You had a good son, and then that good son will perform the sacrifice, and the father can be saved. And according to Srila Prabhupada's purport here, if the father is saved, then of course the mother is also benefited because she was dedicated and chaste, dedicated to her husband. But Srila Prabhupada also points out here that if someone has not just a good son, but a Vaishnava son, the Vaishnava son can deliver everyone. It's not just the father, and it's not just the mother either. It's actually generations, present, past, and future generations. This is the system. This is Krishna's blessings like that. I don't recall, and there have been different statements made about how many generations, past, present, and future, because it depends on your degree of spiritual advancement. But according to your particular advancement, for a devotee, your parents, your grandparents, your great-grandparents, and your own children, maybe their children in the future, their children, so many generations, past, present, and future, are getting very big spiritual benefits simply by the devotees, the person becoming a devotee and practicing the path of spiritual life. This is special blessings Krishna gives for those who are practicing Krishna consciousness. And of course, sometimes that's well, I can tell in my own personal situation that I joined the movement. My parents were, they were good people in the normal, considered good in society, responsible and not criminals and those kind of things. But they, of course, they were not really favorable to my taking up the path of Krishna consciousness. Kind of dropped out of college. They considered it a very stupid thing to do, and I'm sure they didn't particularly like that. But I always had that faith that by my practicing, continuing the practice, this sacred path of Krishna consciousness, I know that their souls were getting and are getting so much spiritual benefit. I can't say where they are and exactly the details of it because it's not within my range. But I know there's a lot of spiritual benefit there, and that they'll gradually become devotees themselves somewhere. So knowing that, for me personally, knowing that made it easier for me to practice Krishna consciousness and not feel that they didn't like what I did. I left school. I not follow a different way of life. Maybe I should just go back and try to do something that'll make them happy. Ultimately, the best thing that could have happened is that I become Krishna conscious, and they also getting the spiritual benefit of being now or in the upcoming future to become also Krishna conscious. Just like we see in the just like Prahlad Maharaj, his father, because he was a devotee, his father Hiranyakashipu, who was a real bad guy, but he got so much spiritual benefit because of Prahlad, and then of course Prahlad Maharaj, his grandson, that was Bali Maharaj, right? Bali Maharaj is the grandson of Prahlad Maharaj. So Bali Maharaj was like the king of the demons. He conquered the entire universe, higher planets, lower planets. He conquered everyone. But because he was because of the blessings of his pure devotee grandfather Prahlad Maharaj, that he got so much spiritual benefit, so much so that Bali Maharaj, after he surrendered to Lord Vamanadev, then he was given the Sutala planet to live in, and Lord Vamanadev was actually remained there with him as his gatekeeper, and with the promise that no one would cause him any kind of disturbance for his whole lifetime. So, in any case, that's the Vedic system. So, and then sometimes people talk about, it's a little bit off the purport, but it's related in a sense. In the Vedic culture, there was this practice, the sati practice, sati rite. So it was actually a very when it was performed the proper way, it was a sign. It was a very it just showed the nature of that culture, the sati, right? Because sati means that at the time that the husband dies and the wife is left, she voluntarily, without really considering otherwise, she voluntarily entered into the fire, the funeral fire, and by doing so, because she was obviously a very chaste lady, and she was willing to do that. So she did that, and by giving up her life in that way, along with her husband, and that she also joined him somewhere else. And if he was a devotee, and she went back to Godhead, that she also would go back to Godhead, like that. Of course, that system became degraded. It became very degraded in more modern times, to the extent that people were actually throwing the ladies into the fire, which was horrible, even when they didn't want to. But in the Vedic system, they would voluntarily, by their desire, would do that because they were so attached to the husband. They're so chaste, and so they had no thought in their lives of going to leave my husband and go to someone else, or to go to many other men, as it happens in modern times. They had no tendency like that. So it was a sign of the culture itself was very nice, and people were and everyone was receiving spiritual benefit. So everyone got that spiritual benefit in Vedic culture. That was the special feature of Vedic culture. Because not that everyone was a devotee of Krishna, but at least they knew the goal. They knew the goal. Maybe they weren't ready to act as devotee of Krishna, but they knew the goal of spiritual. They knew the goal of the human form of life, and they knew that they were not the material body, which is the spirit soul. They knew that we've taken many births before, and we may take many births in the future, depending on our activities. And so in Vedic culture, everything was done towards that ultimate purpose of gradually elevating oneself to become a devotee of the Lord and going back home, back to Godhead. I mean, everyone knew what the goal was, it's just that not everyone was ready for it at that particular moment. So that was a special feature of that culture. Now things, of course, have become degraded, and in India, especially during the British rule, there was great endeavor on the side of the British rulers to try to convince the Hindu population to reject their culture. The culture was so nice if you understood what it was, but they tried to convince them to reject that, and of course that was very unfortunate, and more the people were trying to follow becoming degraded in material life because of having rejected that original culture. But Srila Prabhupada, because he preached Krishna consciousness, preached it everywhere. And in India, originally, when he first was preaching in India, in the very beginning, before he came to America, there was not, basically India was trying to become like America. The idea of America. You go to America, you become, lots of sense gratification, lots of money. People would say, of course, I know you hear it. It's not always a lot of money, but so they would hear like that, and they tried to do that. But but Srila Prabhupada, when he was trying to preach in India, in the beginning, the preaching was very difficult because the Indian people were trying to become Westerners, as it still goes on. But Srila Prabhupada, of course, he preached very strongly in America to all of us who had no knowledge of Vedic culture, and of course, he was getting success. And the Western disciples. Sit down, please. And the Western disciples were gradually giving up the Western culture and becoming Krishna conscious. And then so many of them in the beginning traveled back to India with Srila Prabhupada, and he traveled everywhere preaching. Of course, showing how the Westerners were becoming Krishna conscious. So that this was Srila Prabhupada's strategic preaching, and so people saw that, hey, people in India were seeing that we've given up, or we're trying to give up our culture. We're thinking that this is not a very good culture, and we're trying to become Westernized. And the Westerners, at least some handful, were saying, hey, this Krishna conscious culture is very nice, and we want that, and we don't want the materialistic culture. So Vedic culture, it was a very gradual process, and maybe over many lifetimes it was practiced before you actually went back to the spiritual world. What Srila Prabhupada gave us was the opportunity within this lifetime to finish up this business of this as a human form of life, just finish it up, become fully Krishna conscious, and go back home, back to the spiritual world. There's no need. When we're at the point where we can chant Hare Krishna regularly, we can hear and actually have a desire, some taste for hearing the taste for hearing the Vedic scriptures, and taste for chanting, and taste for teaching others about Krishna consciousness. When we're at that stage, then there's no reason that, if we already know what we're supposed to be doing, and we're already doing it, so there's no reason to be stuck in this material world. Another lifetime, another lifetime, another lifetime. There's no need to. We can finish up our business in this lifetime and go back to the spiritual world. And of course, when one is on that path, they naturally want to give this knowledge to others. Even Prahlad Maharaj, who was already pure devotee from, well, I guess eternally a pure devotee, but he manifested that since early childhood. And he was thinking, I don't want to go back to the Godhead unless I bring so many others with me. Why should I go back and they stay here and suffer? I'll go back, but I want all these others to come. And then there's and of course there's a very special devotee. What was his name? Vasudeva Datta, during Lord Chaitanya's pastimes. Vasudeva Datta was obviously a pure devotee of the Lord. He requested Lord Chaitanya that these people are all suffering so much, they're being tied down to their either karmic activities or suffering the reactions to their past activities. He says, I feel so bad that they're suffering in this way. Let me just take on all the suffering of all the living entities in this material universe, and they go back to Godhead, and I'll simply suffer for them, so they can go. And of course, you can't even imagine someone doing like that, but that was his sincere desire. And of course, Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya didn't make him stay and suffer like that, like he was requesting, but he did give, he spread his Sankirtan movement. So he's given everyone that opportunity to finish up our business in this lifetime and going back home, back to Godhead. It's guaranteed. It's just that if we take it seriously, we can finish it off in this lifetime. If not, then still we're well on the path. There's a couple of points of this verse purport here. Any questions? I don't know, but it's something we're looking up in the Chaitanya Charitamrita where it's described.
I described the most. It's not specifically what actually happened. That desire. One lifetime, like from all the grass, spiritual form. That's fire. Or what they're giving it in the form.
I don't actually know. I will see if I can find out. I'm not absolutely sure. But yes, he did grant him that desire, but he also didn't. But he didn't make Vasudeva suffer all the reactions to everything. I mean, just simply by his desire, Lord Chaitanya granted that. Yes, especially. I cannot see any clocks here. Any other questions? Okay, so no questions, and I guess we'll finish for today. Tomorrow somebody else will be giving class, I guess. So Srila Prabhupada ki jai.